social connection has been scientifically proven to slow, stop, and even reverse aging. And when you have friends who love you and cheer you on, like Marci has always done for me, and hopefully I've done a good job of it for you, Marci, it's one of the greatest ways that you can stay young.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. This is the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. I'm your host, Marci Shimoff. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a teacher in The Secret, creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this podcast, we bring to you extraordinary miracle stories that will inspire you and groundbreaking miracle tools that will show you how you can live your most miraculous life. It is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today is a special podcast day because today I am joined by my very, very dear friend and actually my co-creator in miracles, the amazing, fabulous, and awesome Debra Poneman. So Deb, before I go into your formal introduction, I just have to say, I love you. Welcome. It's fabulous to get to be with you again.
Well, I love you, and I am so happy for any opportunity to be with you. And now I'm with you and thousands of our best friends.
That's right. It's true. Actually, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, "Oh, you're Debra Poneman's friend. She tells me I'm her best friend." There's arguments all over the place about, no, I'm Debra Poneman's best friend. No, I'm Debra Poneman's best friend. So what I will say before I do the formal introduction of Debra is that she, the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, she came out of the womb knowing that instinctively, because that is what she does, and that is what she is. And for those of you who don't know Debra's history and accolades for the last 40 years, more than 40 years, Debra has been a best-selling author. She is the founder of Yes to Success and Ageless Seminars, and she's shared her system that has been used by hundreds of thousands of people around the world to live successful lives, abundant lives, lives of deep happiness and profound self-love and ageless radiance. And her clients have used her formulas to become mega successful entrepreneurs and world leaders and millionaires, billionaires. Some are even household names. And Debra is also the proud mother of 2 fabulous adult children. And she feels that her greatest accomplishments are not that she's helped so many people live their dreams, but that she's shown them how to create an unshakable foundation of inner silence to support them. And I have known Debra since I was 19 years old. We were in college together. And when we left college, we both moved to LA and lived blocks from each other. And in fact, Debra, when she started Yes to Success seminars, I took one of her very first seminars, and I was so ecstatic about it that I quit graduate school. I was getting an MBA, and I had finished my first of 2 years. And I went to work with her as her assistant. My parents, as I said, were not happy about that. But I worked with her as her assistant, and I was quickly promoted to executive vice president, which meant I still did the same things. I still put up posters, but I had a better job title. And I got my start in speaking because of Debra Poneman. So Deb, I owe you so much, and I love you so much. And you are everything that you speak about and teach about. And the reason that you have the success you have is because you are such a deeply aligned person and a very deeply generous person. And so welcome here.
Well, you know what they say, but it definitely applies in this case. We can only see in other people who we are ourselves. And you too, Marci. Alignment, generosity. And it was interesting when you were reading my intro, when you said she's a best-selling author, and I'm thinking because of Marci. She's stages all over the world because of Marci.
Well, this Love Fest between us really does go back 40 something years, 45, 46 years, I think. And it's just incredible how we have been, we feel like we're soul sisters. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to really share, what I want to do is share with people some of your latest work, which is around living an ageless life, living a radiant life. I want to talk about how that relates to living in the miracle zone. So what I haven't mentioned so far, really, I've alluded to it, but didn't mention is when I came up with the idea of your year of miracles, I knew I didn't want to do it alone. And I thought, who do I want to do this with? And it was Debra's name who just came to mind first. And so it was Debra who really co-founded your year of miracles with me. And we came up with all of the principles and the material together. I'm just so grateful. We taught it together for 5 years. And then it became clear that Debra was to go out and really do her own teaching. You really have been part of my miracles journey, and living in the miracle zone. I just credit so much of this to you.
I just want to say that one thing that people probably don't know about you, because you're so articulate and you're so dignified and you're so successful. But one of the things I loved about teaching with you is that when we would come up with a new idea, you would jump up and down.
That's such a good idea.
That's such a good idea. And you're just so precious. And it's like people know the dignified, brilliant Marci who teaches all over the world and writes New York Times bestsellers. But I also know this sweet, kind of innocent girl who gets excited.
Well, and you know what? Thank you for that. And I do get excited. I get excited. I'm still excited. Years after we started, 11 years ago, we started teaching about living in the miracle zone. And I'm still excited about it. It's what I feel like I'm here to do. So what I want to start our conversation off with is your own story of how you went from not living in the miracle zone to how you went living in the miracle zone. And then we'll move to how aging and anti-aging has to do with all of the living in the miracle zone.
Well, one thing you know about me is that, as my mother said, I popped out of the womb. She said, "Oh, Debra was born with a smile on her face." And she used to always say that when I was little, because I have had a very, very happy, blessed life. But since I listened to your podcast, oh my goodness, it's so fantastic. I was just listening to Donna Eden and her husband. If you haven't caught that one, catch that one. I was listening to Donna, and she told the story about how she had MS, and then she had a heart attack, and then she healed herself. I'm thinking, I never had any of those things. I just had this like kind of idyllic childhood. But I did have moments in my life where I had realizations on how to live a more miraculous life. Can I share one with you from when I was?
Of course.
13? Okay. So when I was 13, I was one of the cool girls at East Prairie Grammar School in Skokie, Illinois, but I was never a mean girl. You know, I kind of disdained this thing of, if to be cool, you have to be mean. And one day, I don't know if I ever told you this story, I was out in the playground, and I was sitting on a picnic table with a bunch of girls, and we had a club. And it was, you know how kids do that stuff? They have a club and not everybody's invited to the club. And two of the girls in the club bring over a girl to the picnic table, and her name was Lori. And they said to her, "Lori, we are inviting you to be in the name of the club was the Cleftos. Our symbol was a treble clef. I don't know. But anyway, he said to Lori, "We're inviting you to be in the club." Well, her face lit up. I could still see it in my inner eye today. Like we had just given her, I mean, not even $1 million, so much more. And then those two girls said, "Oh, we're just kidding. We would never let you be in the Cleftos."
Oh.
And I remember, I mean, I could start crying now, but I remember at that moment, I had my first spiritual experience in the playground of East Prairie School when I was 13, because what I saw was all of a sudden I saw the world as if it were like a hologram. And I saw Lori's pain radiate out from her heart center and radiate out to every corner of creation. I saw it as if it were a hologram. And then I saw that her pain went back to those two girls and into their physiology, multiplied 1,000-fold. And I'm watching this, and I didn't know anything about experiences, but what I saw at that moment made me, in my little 13-year-old mind, say, I am never, ever going to do anything in this lifetime that is ever going to cause pain, because I knew that it wasn't just the pain to that person, but the pain would ripple out to the entire universe. Have I been perfect at it? No. Pretty good at it? Yeah, probably very good at it. But that was one of my first lessons in how to live in the miracle zone. Be kind, do no harm, don't intentionally harm others. But one thing that I learned from you is that when you do something unintentionally that does harm to somebody else and you start beating yourself up, put your hand on your heart, stimulate the oxytocin, and forgive yourself. Say to yourself, you're doing the best you can. And that was one of the moments. As I went through life, I had many of those kinds of moments where I learned from people outside like you, or from my own experience, how to live in that miracle zone, in that zone where life flows instead of life being a struggle.
I love that story. I've never heard it. Debra and I have taught together for 46 years, and I've never heard that story. You are always filled with amazing, powerful stories. And what I really want to appreciate about your experience is you were born with a smile on your face, unlike me that was born unhappy. And rather than just going through life unconsciously, enjoying life, you decided to really pay attention to what works. My father was happy, but he was unconsciously competent in the area of happiness. He was there, but he didn't know why or how. You have become consciously competent in happiness and living in the miracle zone. So you've observed what works for you, and you've observed what doesn't work for you and what doesn't work for other people. And I think that's really very conscious and aware. And I love that. So,
well, thank you. And Marci, you know why you never heard that story? Because the first time I told it, I got kind of attacked for saying, well, then did you go back and apologize to Lori? Did you let her in the club? And it kind of wasn't the point of the story.
Right.
But it made me like, oh my gosh, I can't tell that story because I don't remember what happened afterwards. I remember that Lori was my friend for years and years and years, but I don't remember, and I didn't want to make up what happened after. Oh yeah, then I invited her into the club. But one of the things that I learned is, don't stop yourself because of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
You just have to go into your own heart. And if you feel that you're doing the right thing, then go with that, instead of people saying to you, oh, you shouldn't tell that story unless you know if you went back and apologized to Lori. As I grew up, I realized that, there's a quote, do not care. It's from La Rochefoucauld. Do not care about others' voices or those opinions. Do the hardest thing in the world. Think for yourself.
Yes. Amen to that. I totally agree. And that's everything that's ever been good in my life has come when I have been true to myself and not worried about other people's opinions. And I think that's freedom. And, I know we both continue to learn that lesson. So I would love to hear why you, after decades of teaching about success around the world, why did you start teaching about reversing aging? And, and what does that actually have to do with living a more miraculous life?
Well, great question. And here's the truth. I didn't decide to teach anti-aging. I just went through with the flow. I was happily teaching success and miracles when we were working together, and we still support each other to the ends of the earth. But whenever I would mention to people that I was about to hit the big 7-0, yes, you heard it here, I would
wait, I have to comment for those who are watching the video of this, and if you're listening to the podcast but not seeing it, you want to see if you can go see it on YouTube. Debra is over 70 now. She looks 50 or less, and she does not dye her hair. And she has she's got some grays coming in, but the rest is fully her hair color. I cannot say that, but she can.
Well, thank you. So, and it wasn't only the fact that I have almost no gray, very few wrinkles. That's hereditary. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. But also that I could speak from the stage for hours with no notes. So instead of continuing to spend my life answering emails like, how do you do it? I had the thought, I should put together a course because I know what you can do to slow, stop, and even reverse aging. And then I thought, well, how can I make myself unique in the field? Because there's so many other people who teach the same thing. And I thought, I know, I'm going to call my friend Ronnie Newman, who is a Harvard-trained mind-body researcher specializing in anti-aging. I don't know if you remember in 1990, on the cover of Newsweek, there was a headline, "Have we found the fountain of youth?" That was her team's research. She was the head of that team who did that research, and it was reproduced in 350 magazines and newspapers around the world. So I called her up. We were students at Washington University in St. Louis together in the early 70s. And I said, how would you like to put together a course with me? And, she's been peer reviewed, published many, many times. And so we put that thing together, and it has been very, very popular because it has the research behind it.
Mm-hmm. And my experience is that when you're talking about reversing aging, it also has to do with just feeling better in general. And so when you're feeling better, that's where you're open to being in the flow. That's where you're open to being in the miracle zone. I mean, to me, you're teaching the physical and mental and emotional ways to put yourself in the miracle zone.
And you're absolutely right, because another thing that I noticed is that, when I would teach people principles of creating success, or when we taught people principles of creating a miraculous life, the basis is good health. Mm-hmm. The basis is having a clear brain. Do you know a lot of people are just resigned when they get into their 60s or 70s or certainly their 80s that their body's going to fall apart and their minds are going to start forgetting, what their friends' kids' names are or what their friends' names are. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's lifestyle choices. And then people say, oh, but my mom had Alzheimer's. Do you know Alzheimer's and dementia? There's a tiny percentage that is because your ancestors, your parents had a dementia or Alzheimer's. Almost all of it is lifestyle choices. So, and when you are having that radiant health, then of course it's easier to live in the miracle zone, to have that miraculous life. So that's the other reason why we decided to teach anti-aging.
So, okay, I love solutions. I love going right to solutions. So what do you think are really the most important keys that we need to know so we can turn back the hands of time, or at least slow down the hands of time?
Right. And by the way, chronological aging is a given. 1 year we're 50, the next year, surprise, we're 51. But physiological aging is a choice. There are so many things that you could do. And there's overwhelming scientific evidence, for example, that when you eat certain foods like high glycemic foods or foods that are rich in refined carbohydrates and sugars or processed meats with nitrates, they are going to generate free radicals that age our cells. Free radicals are those atoms that are missing an electron, and what they do is they steal an electron from a healthy cell, and that cell oxidizes or ages. It's what happens when an apple turns brown. You cut it, electrons are separated, and it turns brown. That's why our skin ages, because of free radical damage. Overexercising causes free radical damage. Smoking, of course, causes free radical damage. But there are other things that you can do to slow down the aging process. This is something I know that you teach in your Year of Miracles. how powerful your mind is. When you sit around with your friends and all you do is talk about your doctor's appointments and your aches and pains, you are putting your attention on what you don't want to grow in your life. As a matter of fact, what I do when I walk into a room and there are people talking about their doctor's appointments and their knees are going to go and the eyes are going to go and this is going to go, I leave, because I don't even subscribe to those magazines where the ads are walk-in bathtubs. Why do I want to put in my mind that I'm going to have a walk-in bathtub? But the main keys to turn back the hands of time are the usual suspects: healthy diet, the right kind of exercise, rejuvenating sleep, and as I said, a mindset that doesn't believe that you're going to fall apart when you hit 60 or 70, getting stress under control, avoiding toxins in the environment outside we can't really avoid, but do the things you can avoid, like not having toxins in your home. But if you're only going to do one thing, I would go for changing your diet for health and longevity. Start eating antioxidant-rich foods, which I mentioned earlier. And if you want to know some of those, that will be like squirting lemon juice on an apple, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, red grapes, cherries.
Organic on those.
Everything organic, everything non-GMO. There is nothing that's going to age you faster than the pesticides and the fertilizers and the everything that they put on non-organic produce, beets, kale, spinach, broccoli, walnuts. But the pesticides and the herbicides cause major free radical damage. But if you only go for one thing in the realm of diet, and I could tell you when I stopped doing this, you were also my hero in this area because you are decades ahead of me. Stop eating white refined sugar. And this is scientifically proven that it is one of the worst offenders when it comes to brain inflammation. And inflammation is the main cause of your brain atrophying or aging too fast. White refined sugar and foods that act in the same way in your system, like refined carbs, white bread, white pasta, the inflammation slows down communication between the neurons. And when you bombard your neurons with things like white sugar, what happens is that you not only start feeling foggy and dull, but the neurons actually begin to retract. And if you bombard them too much, they will actually die. And you know that when stress is another thing that causes your neurons to retract. And that's why when there's that big space, you know, the synapse, that place between the neurons, when that synapse, when the space gets larger and larger and larger because the neurons are retracting, well, of course you're going to forget what you were going to say because the communication between brain cells is breaking down.
As you know, I stopped eating sugar 15 years ago because I was a sugar addict and I felt awful. I didn't feel good from it. And that was the most important thing I think I've done for my health, is to stop eating refined sugar. I still eat fruit, but I don't eat refined sugar. And what a difference that made. But I want to go back to something else you spoke about before you spoke about food, because I think it's so important for a minute. I want to talk about our mindset and our attitude. I can't tell you how many people I know who just, they feel old. They act old. They think they're old. And they're younger than I am. I mean, so when people ask me how old I am, I'm 66 and I feel so young. I say it proudly. I don't shrink up and go, oh, I'm 66. I'm 66. I feel great. So here's what I would invite people to think about doing is reframe the way you look at your age. And instead of feeling like, oh my God, I'm so old. Now, I'm going to say, if you're in your late 90s, you got it. You can say you're old. I'm old. I'm in my 90s. Okay, you got that. But if you're less than that, I don't want to hear that kind of, it's a vibe, it's a feeling, it's an approach. What do you think about that, Deb?
I completely agree. And I have to tell you, remember Ellen Langer? She was a professor at Harvard and she did
We interviewed her.
You did. She's fantastic. Do you know about her counterclockwise study?
Remind me.
Okay, so she was actually one of my partner, the person that I teach ageless with, Ronnie. She was one of her associates at Harvard. So she led this study to show that mental decline with aging was not inevitable. And it was 1979, and she was just beginning her teaching career at Harvard. She recruited 8 men in their 70s for a 5-day stay at a retreat center in New Hampshire. The men weren't in exceptionally bad health, but they weren't specimens of perfection. They had what would be considered age-appropriate health, which is they moved slowly, they had aches and pains, easily tired. When they got to the retreat center, the men discovered, which was a former monastery, that it was made over to look as the world did in 1959, when they were in their 50s. And there were vintage programs like Lassie was playing on the TV, and 50s music was playing on the clock radio. How many of you listening had one of those? And more importantly, the men were treated as they would have been back then. No one offered to help them with their bags or get them a blanket. And they were instructed to only talk about what they would have talked about in 1959. Eisenhower in the White House, Dodgers and the White Sox in the World Series. And they didn't want the men to catch a glimpse of themselves, so they covered up all the mirrors. And at the end of the 5-day span, Dr. Langer administered physical and cognitive aptitude tests. And the result was, as everybody has probably guessed, on virtually every single metric, the men's performance, their mental acuity improved dramatically from 5 days. And in many cases, by the end, the men's physical and cognitive acuity was back to what would have been expected of them 2 decades earlier.
Oh my God. I think we should do that. What an amazing experiment. We could put mirrors on, cover up the mirrors and pretend that we're in the 60s, and we can put on the music. You've got your bell bottoms still. And we can watch I Love Lucy. The idea, that's a great study. That is such a great study that you mentioned. It really, really points to our whole attitude, our whole mindset towards the idea and process of aging and how we view ourselves. And I really love that. And I love that you include that whole piece, that mindset piece in all your teaching around being around ageless.
Yes, because what we found is when you change your mindset and you become more, as you say, self-confident. I'm 72. I don't have any problem telling people I'm 72. Although it's interesting is that people do treat you a little bit differently. Just warning, Marci Shimoff, warning. I just have to tell one quick story. As you know, I went on a safari about 5 years ago with Richard Branson, and I'm not name dropping. I'm telling you this for a reason. And it was all, and he's a little bit older than I am, but it was all of his younger friends, all the people. I was in my late 60s, and all of his friends were 40s, business owners in their 40s, maybe sneaking into the 50s. And everybody, I think, assumed that I was the same age as all of them. And then my friend Robin, who I was with, said, and Debra's the same age as Richard. She's going to be 70. Next thing I know, they're helping me onto the Jeep. They are giving me their seat so that I could sit down in the seat that's like, I don't have to climb over. And it was just shocking how people think about people who are, that's the only reason why I would say maybe you might want to lie about your age, even though I don't. But I would just say that some people, get over it, everybody. Just realize that age is different and it's dependent on your mindset. My mother was the same way. When she was in her 90s, they had to repair the elevator in her building. She lived on the 4th floor. Everybody else on the 4th, 3rd, even 2nd floor, because it was a retirement building, they moved out while the elevator was being repaired. She's like, so what? You walk up 4 floors. And she did it. That was her mindset. And so anyway, that's what we do.
And that mindset also leads people, I think, more readily to doing the things that are going to help them physically, eating the right foods and doing the right things. And or the things that are the most supportive of their bodies. So, Deb, would you share with us, because, you know, this idea of stress is a big one, and I know how much you spoke about already, how much it really impacts our aging, the aging process. Can you give us a technique or something we can do to help deal with stress that would be helpful for anti-aging?
Absolutely. So again, how neurons communicate with each other is an electrical charge travels from one neuron to the other down these spiny, they're called axons and dendrites. You don't have to remember that. But one of the things that you might want to know is that when you are under stress, there is a chemical in your brain that is released, and it's called corticotrophin releasing hormone. I know you're impressed, Marci, that
I am very impressed.
corticotrophin releasing hormone, also known as CRH. And when you're stressed, it's released into many areas of the brain, and particularly the vulnerable hippocampus, which is the primary memory and learning center. That's why you're about to make a speech and you have memorized every single word of it. Then you are under stress because you have to walk out on the stage. The corticotrophin releasing hormone is released into your brain, and it causes, again, those dendritic spines to retract. And then there's so much space between them that it affects your memory. Fortunately, once the stress dissipates and the CRH is metabolized out of the brain, then the dendritic spines seem to relax and even seem to grow back in most cases. Unrelenting stress, they don't grow back. But one of the things that you can do to facilitate that growing back of the dendritic spines, relaxing of the dendritic spine, two things. One is meditation, and the other is breath work. So I will teach you in the next 2 minutes a simple breath, and it's called straw breath. And there's research on straw breath. If Ronnie were here, she would, march out the research. But for now, I'm just going to
we'll take your word for it.
Take my word for it. So all you want to do, and I'll give you the instructions. You could do it with me. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the lips, but purse your lips as if you were blowing through a straw. Again, breathe in through the nose, out through the pursed lips as if you were making bubbles in your chocolate milk through a straw. Slowly in through the nose and out through the straw. Slowly. For extra credit, you could close your eyes. We'll do a couple more breaths in through the nose. Normal deep breath in through the nose and out through the pursed lips till the lungs are empty but don't strain. In through the nose, out through the pursed lips. Do 2 more breaths on your own. And slowly open your eyes.
Wow. I feel like I just went down about 20 notches in my sort of active vibe. I just feel like I am in a place of grounded peace. I feel actually energy moving alive in my feet.
Isn't that incredible? And it was maybe 2 minutes. And I'll tell everybody something else that you're going to like about straw breath. You can do it. Even, let's say you're on a Zoom call, maybe you're on a board meeting or a family reunion, on your, and you're getting really, really tense, maybe about what somebody else is saying. Nobody will know if you do straw breath. And it brings you back into the present moment, off of the anger, off of that other emotion that probably won't be helpful. And then you can share your opinion from a place of centeredness as opposed to a place of, being angry or kind of unhinged. Even when you're in the grocery store and somebody in front of you is taking way too long and you're in a hurry, straw breath.
Whoa. It really works. It really works. And I so appreciate that you are a person who wants to find what really works. And that's what you've devoted these years to. You've been doing this now for you've been teaching meditation for 50 years, but you've been doing this teaching specifically of anti-aging for at least a decade. And you have gone and found the things that absolutely really work. And I know you've got tons of them. We don't really have time for any more, but I know you've got an ebook that's out that helps people. Tell us about the ebook, and we'll give everybody the link in the show notes.
Yes, there's actually 5 things that I teach, and one has to do with exercise. One actually how to not exactly increase your sexual performance, but don't expect for it to disintegrate when you get older. One is about heart health, and it's a fabulous book with the science to support it, of course, because I wrote the book with Ronnie, and it is called Ancient and Modern Secrets for Lifelong Radiance.
Ancient and Modern Secrets for Lifelong Radiance. And we will be giving the link for that out in the show notes. And I know that you're also teaching a course on anti-aging. And tell us what the name of that.
Yes, anti-aging for your brain, your body, and your future. And in the course, people know that they should exercise, but there are ways that you exercise that actually age you in ways that will turn back the hands of time. Same with sleep. People think, oh, yes, 8 hours of sleep. Not necessarily. There's actually another factor having to do with sleep, which is more important than how long you sleep. And we go more into diet, and we go more into really kind of obscure things that people don't know. For example, how people age their eyes. I'll give you a hint. You're looking at it right now.
Screen.
If you're watching
for those of you who are watching this.
For those of you who are watching it.
And there are remedies. There are things that you can do to help with your screen time. So I know you share that as well.
And something else people might not know is that the blue light coming out of the screen not only affects the eyes, but also ages the skin. Whoa.
Okay, so we'll send you the information on that. And in general, for more information about Debra Poneman, you can go to
yes2success.com.
yes2success.com. And so, Deb, is there any last message you want to share with everybody? And then I'm going to tell a little last story about you.
I'm going to say one other thing that is really great for anti-aging and for staying young and happy. And that is to have incredible friends. And it's the truth. There is a social connection has been scientifically proven to slow, stop, and even reverse aging. And when you have friends who love you and cheer you on, like Marci has always done for me, and hopefully I've done a good job of it for you, Marci, it's one of the greatest ways that you can stay young.
Well, I am so grateful for that, because Deb, you have been my head cheerleader for all of these years. So here's the little story. When I started working with Debra, I was 22 and she was 28, or maybe I was 21 and you were 27. And I remember I kept thinking, I idolized everything that you did. You're an amazing, brilliant speaker. You were then, you are now, and everything about you. And I said, when I'm her age, then I'll be able to do that well. And my whole life has been saying, oh, well, when I'm Debra Poneman's age, then I'll be able to do what she does. I'm finally getting that it's who you are. And you have taught me so much. I'm so grateful for you in my life. You've brought me so much joy and love. I was in Debra's wedding. And I think we've been with each other through many different iterations of boyfriends and relationships. You really know somebody when they can kind of name all of your boyfriends through the years and through the decades.
And here's a little Peace. I'm only telling you guys a secret. We even had the same boyfriend, but not at the same time.
That's true. We did have the same boyfriend, not at the same time. Once again, Deb was before me in that, years before me in that. So, well, Deb, this has been a total joy. And I end every podcast with a quote. And today it's going to be a quote by none other than you, Debra Poneman, who said, and I think this is so perfect for what we were talking about today. You said there is no time like right now to make your life what it can be. And what I know from what we've spoken today is that for all of us, our lives can be more vital, more alive, more in the flow, more in that attitude and place of youthfulness and joy. And so no matter what age we are, we can all be ageless.
And we could live in the miracle zone.
Totally true. So thank you all for being here today, for being with Debra and for being with me. I hope that you felt the love fest that exists when we're together. And I hope that you're feeling inspired and uplifted and more in the miracle zone. And if you enjoyed this episode, we of course appreciate your 5-star ratings, and please share this love, this miracle zone love, with your friends and family. And if you're ready to live more in the miracle zone, you can take our 2-minute free quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. You just go to miraclezonequiz.com. And remember, your life of miracles is waiting for you. It is your birthright. And simply by listening to this podcast, you are taking a step forward into the miracle zone. Enjoy.